Today's stream is going to be a lot of fun, I think. I'm going to wait maybe 5-6 minutes, get a couple people in here, and then we're going to get going. But I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do today. What I've got is I want to build an API that we can curl with a URL to any web page, and it will read that web page and create an audio file, an MP3, that we can use to listen to that web page. And the motivation for building this is twofold. First, I had one of my colleagues here at Amazon reach out to me and say, hey, it would be really cool if we could build a Chrome extension where you could read any web page from Poly. And then I had also the issue that I have a lot of things that I want to read and I don't always have time. So I thought while I'm driving, it might be nice to listen to some of these articles that I always want to read. And that's kind of the motivation for it. So just gonna wait a couple more minutes. If you're here, go ahead and say hello in the chat. Hello. In the meantime, is everything working okay? Is it skipping? Is the audio all right? Everything looking good for everybody? Hello, Nexlum. Basically, if everything's good on the audio side, after about another 30 seconds or so, I'll go ahead and get started. Looks good, sounds good. Thanks, Snow Cave. Still just waiting a second to see if everything's working all right. All right, I'm convinced it's going well. Let's get started. So my goal today is going to be to build, and if I start dropping frames or something, or if you guys start seeing things freezing, let me know and I'll fix it. This is a slightly new setup, so I just want to make sure that everything is working well. And I think we're good. So here's our goal. We're going to have a user, and this user is going to go out and they're going to call out to API Gateway. So we've got our user talking to API Gateway. We'll put that up at this part, and we'll have another one coming back to them. Nah, stop it. That's not what I wanted. I'll never figure out how to use these. We'll have a user talking to API Gateway. Come on. No. Arrow. Boom. There we go. This is our API Gateway endpoint. And then we're going to have, I guess, a Lambda function. Lambda. I'll use this one because I think it's prettier. We'll have a Lambda function, and this Lambda function is going to call out to Poly. And that Poly function, or that Poly service, is going to basically read everything that we send in. So here we go. And then Poly will come back to the Lambda function, which will come back through API Gateway. And it's going to return a JSON document. And I think that JSON document should just look like this. Make this nice and big for everybody to read. I think it should just look like URL and then, the HTTPS, www.newyorktimes.com/some story. And we'll make this real quotes because it's JSON. And it'll have an S3 or maybe an MP3 or something that'll come in through. And I gotta just click on something right here really fast. There we go. And if, again, for those of you who are just joining, this is what we're building. It's basically a Poly-based serverless API for reading any web page. And the reason that we're building this is that I drive a lot in Los Angeles every day. It's a terrible city. Don't come here. And I get tired of not being able to read and do stuff while I'm driving. So I'm going to figure out a way to make Poly read my articles for me. And this will just be an S3 URL. Amazon AWS.com/Poly widget/ ta-da. Yeah. So to get started, I think what we will do is we'll just make a directory. Can everybody see this okay, or do I need to make it bigger? I'll make it slightly bigger here. We'll make a directory. We'll call it, you know, poly Twitch project. I don't like that name, actually. Let's make it poly. No, polyfi. What should I name this project? Anybody have any ideas? I originally said that I was going to name it SayIt, but I'm open to changing the name. For now, I guess I could say we'll keep it as SayIt. If anybody comes up with a better name than SayIt in the next 5 minutes, I'm willing to change it. After that, all bets are off. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is create kind of a folder for our Lambda functions. And then we'll have kind of like a CloudFormation YAML here. Read it. Damn, read it is a better name. So Perlbear suggests read it. That is actually better than SayIt. So SayIt, read it. Okay, so good job, Perlbear. Thanks for that. And then the next thing that I want to do is actually, whenever I'm prototyping stuff, I always love to use a Jupyter notebook, because trying to prototype kind of from memory or you know, iteratively is best done in something like this Python notebook. So I think that's what we'll start with. And of course, the first thing we'll import will be Boto3. And then we're going to need a poly client. So we'll just call this, you know, Boto3.client poly. And we'll probably need some other stuff to be able to get the web page requests. But in the meantime, let's just make sure that we can call out to poly. So we'll say poly dot synthesize speech, and then we'll figure out from there exactly what we want to pass in. But I think it should look something like, oops. I think it should be really straightforward, right? Because if we run, oops, sorry, wrong page. Let me make this bigger. If we go like this, sorry, 1 second. I've got another page open, and I'm just responding to some tweets as people join. Okay, so help poly synthesize speech, and it looks like we have a couple different things that we can pass in here. We've got our output format, which is JSON, and I think the JSON output format ends up sending us a base64 encoded stream in the body. And then we have MP3, and we have OGG Vorbis, and we have PCM, which is just raw, like a waveform. Now, the speech mark types will be sentence. I've never actually passed in unique speech mark types. I've normally just passed in text type. So I think we'll not use speech marks. We will use text, and we will use text type. Does anybody have a preference for voice? So these are the voices that we can use. I'll paste that in the chat really fast. Whichever voice gets the most votes in the next 30 seconds is the one we're going to use. So poly synthesize Emma. Okay, that's got 1 vote. So Christopher A. Burns wants Emma. Emma is the best. Okay, so I guess we're going with Emma then. Voice ID equals Emma. There we go. Have you guys heard the Justin voice? It's absolutely terrifying. We've been using that in some of the other streams. And we'll say text type equals text. And text is going to be that. and we want an output format of MP3. And the reason we're using MP3, so OGG, for those of you who aren't familiar with like the various audio codecs, OGG is actually going to create a smaller file than MP3 will, but OGG doesn't play as easily in the browser. So if you use HTML5 audio, MP3 will play in most browsers if you set it as like an audio tag like this. So if you say audio like that in HTML5, MP3s will normally play, but OGG doesn't play in every browser, including on my iPhone. So that is an issue, and that's why I went with MP3, even though it's potentially an inferior format. But I'm just going to test some stuff out here really fast, and then we'll move on. So I'll assign this to like response or something. We got our response, and let's see what it says. So response, what is the audio stream? So I'm just going to say with open test.mp3 wb as f.write response audio stream. How about that? Cool. And now if we open up another tab in the same little area here, and we say af play test.mp3
world. Hello world. Hello world.
Can everybody hear that? So it seems to be working, but the next thing that we need to do is let's just take some text from a web page. So what's a good news website? I guess Hacker News is pretty good. Pinterest raises 150 million at 2015 share price. 5 years of IPv6. Let's talk about that. So I'm just going to take all of this text. It's a lot of text. And then I'm going to say long text equals and then we're going to pass in text equals long text. And it looks like we got an error. So the maximum length has been exceeded. So if we go look at Poly, there's this issue, well, not so much an issue, so much as a thing that we need to deal with, that we can only pass in 1,500 characters now per request. And so that means we have to come up with some algorithm for taking long text like this and kind of splitting it into shorter text. Now, I'm not sure what the best way of doing that is, but I have some assumptions, and these are my assumptions. My first assumption is that if I take, half of a word, and so like, let's break this off right at rational. So so we're going to do this like this. So let me go down, copy this, move this back up here. So I'm pretty sure if I were to take half of a sentence like this, oops. Let's make this a little bit easier. Shorter text equals. So we'll call this as shorter text, shorter. There's no way that was that fast.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 Years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, to the roller coaster ride that has been IPv6. How can something so simple have taken so long to get to this point? The answer is, of course, human perversity in the face of rat.
So, and then I'm pretty sure if I go and change this to be just national expectations, and we change this to test2.mp3, and then we were to combine those two MP3s,
you could definitely apply the David Bowie song.
Sorry.
Ional expectations.
See, it doesn't work well if we're splitting halfway between words. So we can't just arbitrarily take 1,500 characters, 1,500 characters, 1,500 characters. What we need to do is we have to split it into words and potentially even sentences. Now, in Python, the first thing that comes to mind when I think about that is NLTK. So NLTK, for those of you who aren't familiar, is called the Natural Language Toolkit. And it's a pretty powerful framework, and it has this thing called tokenize. So like I can say import NLTK.tokenize, and then I can say, NLTK.tokenize. And the advantage of tokenize over something like, string.split and using a space as a split is that the tokenize method knows about things like St. Andrews, for instance. So if there's a school named St. Andrews, it knows that St. Andrews is most likely one word. And it knows to split that as one word and not as a Saint and then an Andrews. So, I mean, if I take longer text, so let's insert a cell here. So if I take longer text dot split on spaces, longer text is not defined. Oh, long text. Sorry. If I take long text and I split on spaces, I get kind of these issues. Oh, and then we're gonna have some Unicode issues as well. So perhaps the first thing we should do is check to see that these Unicode issues don't cause any problems. What is the first Unicode issue? It's years. It's the first. Huh. Yeah, I don't think that caused an issue, did it? This XE2, X80, X99, that didn't cause an issue when we sent it into Poly earlier, so maybe we don't need to worry about any Unicode issues for now. So the simple method will just be to call split and then create strings that are as long as possible, but less than 1,500 characters. And I think that's a fairly simple algorithm to write. I think we could just say like build. What about the magic quotes? Nexium said magic quotes, and are magic quotes taking care of the Unicode for me there? Because if that's the case, then there's this framework or this Python package called UnidDecode that I've used before, and it's somewhat heavy, but I might need it. Yeah, I know that's what it is. So I'm years, it's that kind of thing. My only curiosity is if I pass this in to Poly, will it correctly render? And that's what I'm not sure of. So maybe if I say, so what was this thing before? It was longer text.split, and then maybe I say, dot join, and I just take the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I say I take the first 20. Did I mess that up? Oh yeah, I'm missing parentheses. Nope. So now I'm curious if I pass this text in to Poly, if it will correctly render. And I have a sneaking suspicion that it will not correctly render. I wonder what happens if I go like, oops. I wonder what happens if I go like this. Yeah, no, still same issue. So let's assign this to test text equals. And then we'll pass in test text. And then we'll say AF play test2.mp3.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 Years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, too.
Yeah, so it does work. So Poly handles the the Unicode stuff pretty well. And Mark P just joined from NorCal. And just to explain what we're doing, to recap here for those of you who are joining, we're trying to build an API, kind of an endpoint, that we can curl and we can get back a response. And that response is going to be an MP3 of the text on that web page that we can listen to. So it's basically like roll your own podcast from various URLs. So like the New York Times or Hacker News articles that you're reading, and you don't have time to sit down and read them because maybe you're driving to work. I live in Los Angeles, which is in SoCal, and you spend a lot of time on the road here, and you can't be staring at your phone flicking through Hacker News while you're driving. So the best way to get around that is to kind of listen to something. So I'm trying to build an API that will read any web page to me and in a pleasant voice. So we've chosen the Emma voice. We have a couple other voices that we could choose, and maybe we'll make that kind of a configurable option later. Yeah, text-to-speech via curling. So like my end goal is for it to look something like curl-d, URL, HTTPS, www.myarticle.com/so-and-so followed by, voice. And then I can put in the voice that I like to listen to. So like if my favorite voice is the Justin voice, I can pass in the Justin voice and it'll render in that voice. And then I just go to like read it or api.ranman.com/read it. And then I'll get a response back that looks something like this. The URL, and then an MP3 link, and then I can play that MP3. And the way that MP3 should work is methodology. If you're still being charged for Route 53 when you've deleted your hosted zones, you should open a support ticket. So basically, this should return a JSON doc that looks like this, and then I could have, I could take the MP3 portion of this and I could embed it in a web page like audio, source equals, MP3, whatever. And maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. We'll see how far along we get. But first of all, what we've talked about so far is how we're going to split this into portions that are less than 1,500 characters. And the easiest way of doing that is going to be to go ahead and just build an algorithm to do it for us. So I think, there are a couple, I don't want to say like algorithms out there already. So I talked already about nltk.tokenize, which can do most of what we're trying to do for us. The reason I don't want to include NLTK yet, I may end up including it if it ends up being too cumbersome to write this algorithm ourselves. The reason I don't want to include it yet is because I think it's going to cause our binary that we're trying to upload to Lambda later to be quite inflated, and you're limited to about 250 megs in the size of your binary. And I'm thinking if we're going to be stitching MP3s together, we're already going to need to include a statically compiled FFmpeg binary. And if we're including that, that's like 40 megs gone already. And if we're including NLTK and everything, that's another 100 megs gone. And I'd prefer to see if we can do it without it. But if we end up needing it, we'll use it. It'll be fine. It'll still probably fit. It'll just be a bigger binary. So I'm going to build this thing that's like build composite array. And we'll pass in like content, and we'll say, max characters, because this max characters thing in Poly might be 1,500 for now, but it may not always be 1,500. NLTK is actually smaller than 100 megabytes, but you have to include, if you're going to call tokenize, you have to include one of the sample sets. And if you include the sample set, it does go to 100 megabytes. And then NLTK data, like if you buy, or not if you buy, but if you include all of the sets, that ends up being way, way more than 100 megabytes. It's like 3 or 4 gigs of data. So, you know, NLTK is pretty huge. And we're just going to say like this is, you know, split words into less than max cars character points. Max cars. Split text content into subarrays. So Nexium says that NLTK sounded like the correct approach, and that this is why we can't have nice things. NLTK is definitely the correct approach. The other issue is that NLTK is going to be less performant than what we're building here. So when you're building a Lambda function, what matters is how long you're executing for. And if you're loading in the whole NLTK library just to call tokenize, and you're not doing any of the magic that helps you figure out, you know, whether it's a verb or a noun or any of that other stuff, then it's kind of, you know, overkill. It's overkill for the situation. Now, if at some point we wanted to go in and add our own emphasis on things using SSML, NLTK might make sense because we could identify verb phrases that were particularly bold, and we could add emphasis to those to make the reading sound more lifelike. So we might end up doing that. So we're going to split this text content into subarrays of length less than max cars. I think that's a good description of it. And basically, we're just going to have like a thing forward in content.split by space. If so, and then we're going to need like a current length. Length is going to be 0. We're going to need, you know, an index of where we are right now. And we're going to need a composite equals an empty array of string. So if the current length plus the length of word, which is the current word that we are on, is greater than max cars, then we say index plus equals 1 and current length equals, I don't know why I started with a for loop. I should have started with a while loop. That would have been way easier. Current length is going to be length of word plus 1. And the reason we're doing plus 1 here is because we're going to have a space. So we're going to have a, I'll show you in just a sec. So it's going to be like composite dot append word plus, you know, space. Some hacky crap like that. I'm sorry. So then we're going to say current length. So this is the case where it's greater than max cars, and we have to iterate and add a new portion, a new section to the array. Whereas this is the section where it's less than max cars, and we can say current length plus equals length word plus 1. And then composite is going to be composite index plus equals word plus space. And then we just return composite, I think. Probably. We might have to do some sort of Unicode magic in this bit just to deal with splitting issues. I'm not sure how poly counts Unicode characters, if they still count as one character, if it means literally every single byte counts as a character, in which case double width Unicode stuff would probably not come out as 1500 characters. So we'll have to figure out how that's being counted, but those are all edge cases that we don't really need to care about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 to-dos. To do deal with Unicode, deal with words greater than max cars. So right now, if somebody passes in one really long word, probably in German, then we won't be able to deal with that. So that's not an issue that I intend on solving right now, because if you have a word that's longer than 1,500 characters, you have other problems than reading the article. But for now, we'll say that this is our method, and we'll work from there. And then from there, all we need is kind of like I guess we should test this. So let's test this real quick. Insert cell below. So let's say build composite array long text, and then max cars is going to be 1,500. And then I want to call this like out array. So we'll say out array. I just want to say like length of out array is 5, and then if we say length of long text, it should be whatever 1,500 times 5 is, which is 7,500, or close enough. 6,314. What is the deal with apostrophe S or hyphens in the count? So up here, we're splitting on spaces only. So an apostrophe is going to count. So Lost Kuaz asked, what's the deal with hyphens or apostrophes in the count? They will count as part of the word so long as there is no space. So earlier I was talking about issues with things like the word St. Andrews, and St. Andrews, which should be treated as one word, will actually be split by this algorithm that we've just written. By the way, I don't even know that this algorithm actually works, so I'm going to pass in like short text too, and hopefully maybe shorter text. What did I call it earlier? Shorter text. Oops. Yeah, so okay, so the algorithm works more or less. I wonder what happens if we pass in an empty string. Is that something I failed to take into account? Nope, works, great, perfect. Okay, cool. And then X Darth Mullen X asks, what language do I plan to use for Lambda? I'm gonna use Python, that's what we're writing in right now. We could use Java, but if we use JavaScript, we'll just be in hell all day, so I'm not gonna touch any of that. That's a joke. I like JavaScript. I'm giving all the JavaScript programmers of the world a hard time. So we're gonna have this build sound kind of thing, and then we're gonna pass in a voice. And this is basically just gonna be our thing that we've already done here. How do I make this look prettier? This is when I miss Vim. And instead of voice ID, we're just gonna say voice, and here we can put in voice equals, default voice. So just to get all of this ready for Lambda, I'm gonna go ahead and start defining some things. So we're gonna say os.getInv max cars, and then that's gonna have a default of 1,500. We're gonna say default voice equals os.getInv default voice, and that's gonna be Emma. Does anybody have and Anthony WC asks, why not Python 3? The reason I'm not using Python 3 for this is that I think when it comes to stitching together the MP3, I'm going to have an issue calling out to FFmpeg. I have not tried in Python 3 before, so it's very possible that it would work just fine. But the audio library that I'm familiar with is called PyDub, and PyDub works pretty well for mixing and matching MP3s. And we might be able to switch to Python 3 with no issues. So we can try it, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to switch right back to Python 2. But we'll see what happens. I would prefer to use Python 3. And then just to answer your questions, yes, you can definitely use anything that the JVM will run. Well, maybe not anything, but just about anything that the JVM will run Basically anything that can eventually compile down to a libc executable, you can run if you include all of the dependencies. So people run Go, people run all kinds of languages on Lambda. I have a couple of Go functions myself. Import OS. And some people are really particular about keeping their imports in alphabetical order, but I am only a little bit particular about that. So we're gonna have default voice, passing in default voice, response. So then let's see. I think I might need to pass in a sample rate. Let's see here. So we'll say sample rate equals os.getInv sample rate. I don't remember what the default sample rate for poly is. Poly sample rate. I think it's 1600. Yep, oh no. So valid values for MP3, Ogg Vorbis. So I'm actually gonna go with 8000 as the default because we don't need, it's text, right? It's not, the sample rate isn't gonna sound to our untrained human ears as particularly grating. It's gonna be just fine. And I'm gonna pass this in as a string because I think that's what it's expecting. Okay. So maybe I should should I make sample rate an argument to build sound? I think I should. That way if we need to reuse this later. Xdarth Mullen X asks, does C# compile down to libc? And can you reference other framework DLLs? You can reference other framework DLLs if you bring them into the package. So there's a page called Lambda Packaging that has all the details about creating a deployment package for different languages. And in addition to that, C# can compile down to libc. There's a framework called Mono that you can run, but I don't know that it actually needs to for the Lambda case. James Fearman might be able to answer that better than I can. So let's just say sample rate. So we're gonna have a response, and then from this response, we are going to build all of our stuff. So this is the part where we have to start figuring out how we're gonna stitch together MP3s. And I don't know what the best way of doing this is. There's this library called PyDub that I've used in the past for messing with my library. Does it have Python 3? Python 3? No, it doesn't seem to have Python 3. And I think we can use this. The only issue with this is that we will need at some point to pull in FFmpeg. So I will do my best to get all that, running on Lambda, and I'll show you guys how I do it. But let's get it running locally first. So we're gonna say kind of from PyDub import audio segment. And then I think we'll probably need like temp file and stuff as well. Import temp file. And we might need, I think that'll do it for now. And there's a side conversation happening right now about C# and stuff, and I'm gonna let Julio, JM Fairman, handle that, and I'm gonna kind of ignore it. But if you guys have any other non.NET related questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okie dokie. So I think this is right that we're passing in so far, but what we really need to do is we need to say for, basically we've got to say sound equals audio segment dot empty, and this really, instead of content, it needs to say like composite text. So that means we're going to pass in that array of stuff. Right? Isn't that what that means? No, maybe I should make it take the content. And then what we'll do is we'll say composite equals build composite array of content, and we'll pass in, we'll make this equal to max cars. Does that sound right? I think that sounds right. So we'll create an empty audio segment, and then we'll say for text in composite, I'm going to call out to Poly, and we'll say, we'll create like a temporary path, and this will be just sort of like /temp response metadata, and this will just be the request ID. So we'll just name each thing we create after the request ID, and then we'll say with open path write binary as f dot write response. So here's the other thing. Is it better to join them all at once or to just concatenate them and store the waveform? So if we're going to be charged for the amount of memory we use no matter what in Lambda. So let's see. So here's the problem that I'm currently facing. Basically, I'm not sure if it's better to leave all these temporary files on disk and then read them and combine them all at once into MP3 format. No, it doesn't make any difference. It's the same. Yeah, it's the same. Okay, I just had to think through that for a second. It will be the same amount of RAM and the same amount of storage no matter what. Okay, audio stream, read, and then we just say sound plus equals audio segment dot from MP3 path. And is that right? I think that's right. Okay. And then from there, all we need to do is kind of return the sound data. So what's the best? So to return the sound data in audio segment, there must be some way of getting the raw data. So let's look here. Import array, import OS, Is there like a raw? There are no docs for this. There's no docs for this API, so kind of have to just go at it. And see, the other issue is that I don't want the raw data. I don't want the waveform data. What I want is the data that has the MP3. So I think I'm actually going to have to create like a temporary file to do this. And I've done this before, so I kind of like know how to do it. Temp path equals temp file mx temp dir equals /temp. So this is for the person earlier who was asking about Python 3. I forgot who that was. Sorry. This is so Anthony WC earlier asked about Python 3. This is when you would have to kind of start making some changes. So everything up until this point would work pretty well in Python 3. This is where it starts getting hairy. It's like with the temp file stuff, and so like dir is a reserved word in Python. Issues there. So we can say sound plus equals audio. No, we already did that. Sorry. We're gonna say sound.export temp path format equals MP3. Format is also not a word we should be using. With open temp path WB as FP. And this needs to be RB, not WB. Sound data. I think we can just say, you know, return fp.read. And that way, I'm not entirely sure how the Python VM handles a return within a with, but I am 99.999999% sure that it will actually close the file pointer and do all that good stuff. So, why did I save the file descriptor here? I probably don't actually need this, so I can throw it away. So xDarthMollenX says that I find any cloud functions like this interrupting with streams and disks and really any libraries that might need OS resources is very problematic. With Lambda, it is surprisingly not problematic. It's not ideal, obviously. In some of the other streams that I've done, I've worked very hard to keep everything off of disk and keep everything in RAM. But you have this, you know, you have 500 megs in /temp, and you can do just about anything with that. So let's see, what did we break? Sample rate is not defined. Let's try again. All right, so everything's working. So the next thing that we have is just the Lambda handler. And the Lambda handler is going to be responsible for getting the content from the web page. Now, this is a non-trivial process, right? Because if you look at what the HTML content of a web page looks like, you know, there's a lot of stuff. And even if we just go to body, or even if we just go into, you know, article, like I can open up the console here and I can say, you know, query select all, article, and there are two of these. And then I say, like, you know, article 1 dot inner text. Like I still, you know, this is not what I'm looking for, right? Like this is the issue. I need to get the text of like the main article. So there's this really cool library called Goose Extractor. So Goose Extractor, it's originally a Java library, and I used it way back when. So Goose, I think it's written in Scala actually. And I used this a long time ago, like 5-6 years ago, to scrape some web pages. And then there's a modern version, you know, trademark, in Python called Goose-Extractor. And you can see it's actually pretty easy to use. We just, you know, from Goose import Goose URL equals da da da. So I think we should try that really fast, because I've used it before and I know how it works. And if the dependencies for this end up being huge, maybe we should switch to NLTK. But my goal right now is to just get something running on Lambda as quickly as possible. So we're going to say from Goose import Goose. I've already installed this library, so I'm going to say URL equals, you know, this URL. And then I'm going to say G equals Goose. And I'm just following along the documentation here. Article equals G.extract URL equals URL. And cannot import Goose because I have one too many O's. And then if we say G.title oops, not g.title, article.title, 5 years, nice. And then if we say article.body, is that what it says? Or no, article.cleaned text. Oh, damn, that's no good. That is not what we wanted. We wanted everything. So Goose might not work for us. Or at least it didn't work for that page. What are the other things that we can grab here? So this is an LXML element. Does anybody know the best way of kind of scraping a web page and getting the core components? I'm welcome, I'm happy to use any library. I'm even happy to call out to like another API if we need to do that. Because we might be slightly blocked if Goose can't grab the things we want to. Images. Anybody have any ideas? Try a Medium post. Medium. We'll try the introduction to the MXNet API from Julian Simone. Cleaned text. Same issue. Beautiful soup, grab visible web page text. If it's XHTML, we could try XPath. So the issue with XPath is that not everything is always in the right element. So that's what I was showing earlier here is like, if I look on this, right, like this is, every single web page is going to have a different thing. Like it should be in this article. So if I go, query select, find all articles. So found one, and then I say, okay, from that one, get me inner text. Inner text. So, I mean, that worked for Medium, but it also returned a ton of like unrelated stuff. It has like responses and all these other things. So, so Julio is recommending that we use jQuery, XML Starlet. Indie Hacker says it's really awesome that Amazon is doing this. Thank you, thank you. Just to avoid trash on the page, we could use Beautiful Soup. I know Goose uses Beautiful Soup. Let's see if it works for like a New York. Let's find something that it works for. Hopefully it works. Not that. Washington Post article. Let's try a Washington Post article. So we go here, we change the URL again. So it works for a Washington Post article. So maybe Goose is just trained for those sorts of things. Let's stick with Goose for now, since I know it. It's not ideal. Maybe we can come back and fix it, but let's get it all up on Lambda and get it working. And we'll stick with Washington Post articles for now. And that's not just because Jeff Bezos owns it. It's because it happened to work. So we're going to have from Goose import Goose. And then we're going to have G is going to equal our Goose. HTML to text. Let's look at this library really fast. Oh, this is Aaron Swartz. He wrote this. Those of you who don't know who he is, you should look him up. He's a super amazing human being who unfortunately is no longer with us. HTML to text doesn't look like it's going to work for us. Let me see. I'm just going through the code here. Entity defs. God, this is beautifully written. I don't know if you guys ever, for those of you who are musicians, sometimes you look at music and you can kind of hear it in your head and you're like, wow, this is really nice. And some of us who look at code all the time, we kind of look at code and we're like, wow, this is really nice. This is really nice, but it's not going to work. There's a lot of work that went into this, but I do not believe it will handle pages like Medium and like other stuff. It hasn't been updated in some time, so we might want to try it later though. Cool. So we're gonna stick with Goose. We're gonna move forward, do some Goose stuff, and now we're gonna build our Lambda handler. So we're gonna say def Lambda handler. I have a bunch of lights that are on behind me and they generate so much heat, and the vent for my AC is blocked. So at some point I may get up and adjust all of that because it's just not fun. So we're gonna say event.get URL and then voice, if there's a voice in it, event.get voice, and if there's not a voice, we'll use the default voice that we defined up above. And then like if not URL, then we want to like raise a value error, bad request, missing URL. Or no, we probably want to be like missing parameter URL. How's that? Okay, now we're gonna say article equals g dot extract URL equals URL. Xstarth Mullen X Python looks pretty darn easy to use syntactically. It absolutely is. It's a wonderful, wonderful language. I strongly recommend it. So then we'll say content equals, no, we don't need to do that. Basically, we're just going to say build, so we're going to say, let's see, sound data equals build sound article dot cleaned text. Was it clean text or clean text? Does anybody remember? Cleaned text. Okay. And then we don't even need to pass in anything else. Max cars. And then we return. We're gonna return URL, and then S3. Okay, so here's the thing that I want to do is I want to make an S3 bucket for this stuff. So I'm going to make a bucket really fast. I'm just going to say AWS S3 make bucket S3. What did we decide to call this? Read it. That already exists. Poly read it. Cool, so we've made this bucket poly read it. And then the next thing that we're gonna do is just like build a URL from this. It should be super, super easy to do. All these URLs are kind of like in the same format. So we'll just say like dot format. Oh, but we're gonna need a name. We are going to need some name for these files that is kind of unique. Let's generate a hash. So we're gonna need to do some caching at some point anyway, so we can use a hash for that. So I'll just create like this generate hash method, generate hash content. Stop it. Hasher equals hashlib.md5. I've got to import hashlib, import, yeah, import hashlib, hashlib equals md5, and then hasher.update content, and then return the hex digest of that hasher. Is it just hex digest? I think it is, but does it have an underscore? See, things are complicated enough now that we should probably, hop over into an IDE, because then it's faster to like, once you've got the basic schema of what you're building and you no longer need to do this kind of like rapid iteration, hopping over into an IDE can be really useful, especially once you've got multiple files and classes and stuff like that. But I think it's without the underscore. I hope it's without the underscore. So we'll say, so now we need to build kind of like a file name. So we'll just call this like sound md5 is going to be equal to generate hash sound data, and then fname equals sound md5 plus dot mp3, and we're going to say this will just be so we need to import an S3 client. So S3 equals bodo3.client S3. Nobody's chatting, so I'm gonna hope that everybody's following along. If anybody would like me to recap the stream at any point, you're welcome to like ping me, and I'm happy to recap everything, but I also want to keep moving. So this is a really cool trick. If you guys are ever trying to figure out where your Lambda function is running and like which S3 you're connected to, you can do like s3.meta endpoint URL. It's a pretty cool trick that I recommend. I need to create yet another environment variable. Bucket name equals os.getInv bucket name. And do you guys remember what we called the bucket? Poly read it. So let's just say poly read it. Was it dash? Yeah. Cool. So we'll say bucket name and then fname. So that will get us everything we need. But oh, we're not even putting the object up yet. So we still need to like s3.put object bucket equals, this doesn't need to be tabbed in, bucket name, ACL is going to be public read. I can never remember if that's an underscore or a dash, but when you do it on the command line, it's a dash, so we're going to say that it's a dash. And that S3 meta endpoint URL, yeah, so I strongly recommend that point. It's a pretty useful thing to do. And this is just going to be sound data. And then the key is going to be fname. So this will all work. This will all work. And now if we call, so if we say lambda handler event, and then we pass in URL. Let me make this like JSON looks like. URL. And I'm not going to pass in a voice. Oh, I do need to pass in none for the context though. I should get a response that is that like JSON document. built-in function or method has no attribute update. So my hashing function is broken. Oh, I see what it is. So here where I call hashlib MD5, I need to actually call out to MD5. So that should work now. Did it work? So now if we go here, stop. I can like say wget, and then I can say AFplay F16D.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, too. You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5.
And Slayer Darth asks, hi, are you actually an AWS employee? And I am, but they'll probably fire me any day now, so no, I'm teasing. I am an AWS employee. It's a pretty great job. I'm getting to hang out on Twitch and talk to all of you guys. So if I pass in voice, if I change this voice here, voice, I want to see if it works with Justin.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 years. It's the first.
Oh, we've just run into our first bug.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song. You could definitely apply the David Bowie.
Huh. See, I passed in a different voice, but it didn't use it. So what am I doing here? When I'm calling build sound, I'm not passing in the voice equals voice. So if I was looking to host a few small scale Python web apps of mine and I was deliberating between AWS and DigitalOcean, how would I sway you over to AWS? Slayer Darth, I would actually check out Lightsail. So Lightsail is kind of like AWS Lite. It's pretty good for small scale projects. And in general, you know, DigitalOcean makes a great service. I like them. But AWS just has a lot more stuff. You know, as soon as you expand beyond your like small scale Python web app, you're probably going to want more than what DigitalOcean offers. Maybe, I don't actually know. Like it sort of depends. And that's why I would prefer AWS. But you know, I also work there, so I have to say that. But check out Lightsail. I like Lightsail. You also get like 2 terabytes or so of downstream bandwidth or outbound bandwidth. Pretty good. Let's see if this works. And we also have another bug. Cool. So we're gonna get this one now. wget. Slayer Darth is like, I'm sold. Slayer Darth, if you want to email me, randhunt@amazon.com, I can give you some credits if you're interested in just like, you know, experimenting with some of the services. If anybody wants to email me for, you know, a small portion of AWS credits to run an experiment, just shoot me an email, say like, hey, I'm interested in building this. This is why I want the credits, and I'll send you some credits. It's no problem for me, and I love to see developers, you know, so build some cool stuff. So let's see if this actually changed voices. It looks like it did. 8.4.
You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, too. You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, too. You could definitely apply the David Bowie song 5 years. It's the first track on the Ziggy Stardust album, too. You could definitely.
Why is it just
apply the
repeating
David
the
Bowie
same
song 5
thing?
years. It's the first track on the.
Why is it just applying the same thing over and over again? Let's say print, let's say from future import print function. So it's just playing the same thing over and over again. So I got to figure out why that's happening. really fast. And then the other thing, if you have Slayer Darth, if you have small scale Python web apps, check out the Zappa framework, which will deploy it on API Gateway and Lambda. And the advantage of that is, like, if you don't have people coming to look at your application, you don't actually pay for the servers that are hosting it. So as long as there's not people, pinging it and creating requests, you're not paying for the app. I use that for most of my apps, actually. So I have a bunch of different web apps that I run on API Gateway and Lambda for that exact reason, is that, they're popular for a short period of time and then they go away. Okay, so I've added this print function. I want to see. Shouldn't this have printed the cleaned text? Oh, no, it didn't. Article.cleaned text. Let's try this one more time with feeling. It's called Zappa. GitHub.com. Yeah, serverless is really good too. But if you're doing Python stuff, Zappa is basically the best. So Lost Kuaz says it's not reading from the article in that loop. Text and composite. So build sound. So where is it not reading from the article? Oh, it's, okay, I see. Text equals test text, so it's got to be, there we go. Okay, we got it. We've figured it out. Let's run this again. I'm certain this one will work though. So it might take a second to run, but good catch, Lost Kuaz. Very good catch. I use Elastic Beanstalk to deploy some of my apps as well, and it's also pretty good. But if you're doing small scale, I think Zappa is even better, especially if it's just like a basic Flask app. Okay, so here we go. This is our first real article. wget af play 5729.
One day, several years ago, as James Hadley was still trying to establish himself as the San Diego of how to his everyday.
It's working. It's working. All right. Oh, we're passing in just the word URL. It's not quite working yet. Hold on. URL. Cool. So I think this is good enough actually to go and upload it to Lambda. Now, when we go to upload it to Lambda, we're going to hit a couple of different issues. The first issue is we've got to include all these different libraries that we're using. So for this case, it's really just Goose and PyDub. But the issue with Goose is that Goose relies on FFmpeg. So to get around the FFmpeg requirement, I'm going to use John Van Sickle's statically compiled FFmpeg. And I'm going to use the Git build. You can also use the release builds, but the release builds are like 90% of the time out of date. And these builds from Git tend to be a little more performant and better. So we're just going to say wget that. I'm going to say move this into FFmpeg to lambdas. So I'm going to say, get init rm-rf all.mp3, oops, rm-rf rm f1.6 cd lambdas, and we'll just say open FFmpeg, and I think this should like automatically unarchive it for us. Nope, it didn't. Sorry. tar xzf FFmpeg. Yeah, that worked. Okay, cool. .tar.xz, arm-rf, FFmpeg, get 32-bit. Okay, cool. So we have this FFmpeg thing, and this should run on Linux pretty easily. We only need the FFmpeg binary. We don't need the other ones, unless I'm super mistaken. If we need all of them, that's going to be a pain, because if we like run, I mean, these are big. This is 134 megs total. So let's just hope that all we need is FFmpeg. So I'm going to say cp FFmpeg, and copy that up here, and then we're going to move FFmpeg-get into like downloads or something. Okay, so that's our first. Right, so Slayer Darth, you're talking about using FFmpeg in Mac, and I have that, running on my local machine. But what I want to do is I want to load this into an AWS Lambda function. So what I'm going to do, because I think we've got a couple new viewers now, people who have joined kind of after the fact, and I want to show you guys what we're building. So if we zoom in here, basically what we're building is we're building an endpoint that a user can curl. It'll hit an API gateway, which will hit a Lambda function, which will call the Poly API, which will then go back through the Lambda function, back through API gateway, and then back to the user. And then we're going to add in some caching eventually later. So in order to include FFmpeg on a Lambda function, I have to build like a script, that or a whole thing that will compile all of this for me. Now, the other thing that I need to do is I need to include all the Python requirements. To do that, I have a build script that I'm just going to write, and essentially that's just going to be like, like user bin env Give me 1 second here. I'm responding to some more tweets and also some private messages. And Slayer Darth says, are you encoding the audio or something? And the response to that is, we're not so much encoding the audio as so much as we are, but we're more concatenating it. So Poly's API can only bring in like 1,500 characters at once. And we're going to take all those different MP3s and put them into one big MP3. Set plus X, and then we're going to say if dash Z. If the first argument is missing, then echo missing an argument, homeboy. And then exit 1. We're just going to say missing zip argument. And I'll make the script available for everybody later. I use this on all of my different Lambda functions, so it's pretty useful. It works really, really well for building Python packages. And I'll make this kind of public for everybody to use. The other additional thing that you can do, and that I've done in the past, is I have a code build server that will actually go and build a little static executable based on my requirements.txt and other things that I include, and then it'll ship that out to Lambda for me, which is pretty useful. And then we'll say if not dash d VM, then we will create our VM. Echo no virtual environment detected creating, and then we'll say virtual env VM, pipe that into /dev null because we don't need any of that input, and then we can in that if condition, and then we say echo activating, and then we'll source VM bin activate. What's next? Then we want to install the requirements. Installing requirements. Let me make this activating virtual env. And I'm kind of like taking this from another script that I've written in the past and slightly modifying it. -t. So -t argument into pip install is going to say install it directly in this directory that I have right now, requirements. .txt. Pipe that into /dev null as well. And we'll say echo zipping file, and then we'll say zip -9 -r the first argument .-x vm, and this is just going to say like ignore everything in vm /dev null. We should probably do a -x ignore all pyc files as well, because those don't matter, but I am too lazy to do that. Deactivate, and then we'll cd back, and then we'll say zip -9 $1, which again is the first zip file argument that we passed in, and then we want to take all the arguments after the first one and zip those as well, and I think that'll work. So chmod +x build.sh, and we'll say, oh, I need to make a requirements.txt really fast. Requirements.txt, pydub and goose extractor. So then we'll say build.sh, readit.zip. What is so build.sh readit.zip. So Slayer Darth says, I remember when I first started using Linux and I was learning make files, and when I ran make, I got annoyed that I had to specify the installation prefix. So I just ran a recursive chown on user bin. One of the first things that I do when I get a new Mac, and don't tell anybody this because it's evil, is I just go like chown-r, who am I? And then I say /user local, and I chown everything in user local to myself. And it's not like it's a huge deal, but I get tired of like waiting for brew to ask me questions or for pip to ask me questions. Did I just delete that whole command that I was already typing? Oh well. Damn, didn't mean to do that. So we're gonna say /build.sh stuff, or we'll call it readit.zip, and then we're gonna say, oh, you know what? We're gonna say FFmpeg and readit.py, except readit.py doesn't exist yet, so we're gonna make it real quick here. So touch readit.py, charm readit.py. Did charm just like die? Come on now. Chown 777. That's always a very dangerous command to run. All of this talking actually makes it a little hard on my voice. So in just a second here. Oh wow, is this directory called readit.py? No, that's just what they call the project. Okay, so we need to go to this page that we have here, and just copy all of this. I'll move all this to the side here, and hopefully this doesn't find any issues. And then if we run this, theoretically, it should work, but it didn't, because I've probably forgotten a semicolon on literally every freaking line. That always happens to me when I'm writing bash. Okay, so I definitely forgot a semicolon somewhere. I just don't know where yet. So does anybody see the issue yet? Here it is. Third line, forgot a semicolon. I bet I forgot one somewhere else too. I always do this. See, the problem with switching between Python, JavaScript, and other stuff all the time is like you just forget. You forget certain things, minor things. Anthony WC, earlier you showed that alias eval who am I. Is that a Mac thing? So this is actually a shell command. So when you use the backticks that says execute the command, that tells your shell to execute this command. So if I type in backtick who am I, it will output, the command who am I is not found because I spelled it wrong. But if I go like this, it'll say the command not found is rand hunt. Shellcheck.net checks your scripts for syntax errors. I should use that. That is what an intelligent human being would use. But I think we have all learned from this stream today that I'm not one of those people. So Sublime Text does a pretty good job of doing the shell check stuff. Hello, Keith Smackey. Keith S. Mackey. We're waiting a short moment while this compiles and builds and everything. Anthony WC says, why do I have that habit on Mac of eval who am I? Where do you see that habit? Sorry. Anthony WC, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question, but if you clarify a little bit, I'll see what I can do. Okay, so we have our zip file, and let's see how big it is. I do have a lot of like really weird habits on my Mac. Every time I get a new Mac, I do that chown thing. So the reason I chown user local is Homebrew on Macs requires that user local have certain permissions, and it'll do that itself. And then also, if you're not using Homebrew, there are things like LaTeX and Python and like various other things that just become a huge pain in the butt to like constantly be updating. So if you chown user local to be your own user like that, then you don't have to constantly type sudo in front of half your commands. And Slayer Dart says, so what's your story, Randall? Do you come from a strong programming background? I would say I come from a strong programming background. I didn't study programming. I studied physics. But there was this video game called RuneScape, and I was obsessed with winning. So I wrote a bunch of bots in RuneScape to try and win. And I didn't. So then I gave up RuneScape. And I started programming. Also, being a programmer at Amazon is actually pretty awesome. You get access to a whole lot of resources that are pretty empowering and fun and stuff. And like, I'm not just saying that because they pay me, right? Like, I'm saying that because it's genuinely fun. Like, I get to hang out and chill with you guys all the time. I don't know. Like, I don't know many roles in the world where you get to do that. So take it for what you will. I'm going to copy this into the read it bucket, poly read it. I don't want read it .py, I want read it.zip. AWS S3 copy read it.zip into S3 poly read it. And this is a couple megs, so it'll take a second to upload. And while that's going, what I'm going to do is hop over into the AWS console. And it's amazing. This has been an AWS broadcast, and this is the first time that I've actually opened the AWS console. I'm sorry about that. So I want to create a new Lambda function, and I'm just going to call this function read it. And we're going to say it's going to be in the Python 2.7 runtime, and we're going to upload a file from Amazon S3. S3. And this is going to be readit.zip. Is this done? Cool. And this is going to be so the readit dot lambda handler is going to be the handler. And then for the role, I'm just going to use a role that I've been using recently called delete because I need to delete it. And I'm going to bump this up to a full gig of memory. And I'm going to say you can run for up to 1 minute, 1 minute 30 seconds without any issues. And then I'll create my function. And it was created, everything was working successfully. And so let's just test it. So how do I'll say test, and then I'm gonna change this to be URL. I'm gonna change this. And then does anybody have like a really good article that I should make this read? I'm gonna go back to the Washington Post and see what's there. Let's find something that has absolutely nothing to do with Trump. That is not easy. Is there like tech news or something? Local. No, there is a tech thing. Good. God, the news is extremely depressing. Sorry. Let's go to tech news. Let's find Amazon, Kickstarter, Reddit, and Mozilla are staging a net neutrality online protest. That sounds good. I'm a fan of net neutrality. So then we'll pass this in and we'll save it and we'll test it. And I think this should run in like 2 seconds. Unable to import module, read it. What did I call it then? Readit.py, then read it. I mean, that's what it's called. Oh, unable to import module, read it, var task lmxml etree.so invalid elf header. Interesting. So what's happening here is that the requirements that I'm calling out to are being built for OS X, and it's using the shared object libraries for OS X. So what I need to do is I need to go and build this on Linux. And I can do that really quickly, actually. So if I've got, a couple EC2 instances hanging around. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to SCP this whole shindig over to that instance. So I'm just going to say, SCP -r dot into this. Lambda. So let me just SSH over there, make a directory really fast. I could use rsync too, but I'm not going to. mkdir lambda. And I need to pass in -i. So pass that in, -r. This will take a little while. So yeah, there's a whole thing about, don't I have an SSH config file? I do have an SSH config file. My SSH config file is extremely complicated. And I work with like hundreds of different servers and stuff every day, so it's really not worth it for me to like go and encode them each inside of the file. I literally do have like a couple hundred servers. We're gonna leave the time where this is running as like Q&A time for like a hot minute. I actually, I can make this run a lot faster actually. I can just rm-rf the entire, read it zip. ls-la rm-rf.temp build rm-rf. I have this bad habit of typing -rf when I don't need it, which can sometimes lead to very bad things. So we'll just say now run this, and I think it should work a little bit faster. So I'm gonna step away just for a brief second while this is all uploading. It shouldn't be too long at all. Why don't you guys ask me some questions in the chat about anything at all, and I will get back with you real quick. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I am back. Oh, is the copy already done? Okay, cool. So AWS is pretty fast. We can SSH on over. Let's see here, Lambda. And I think I need to do like sudo yum install python devel. Yes. Sudo yum search python 27. Oh yeah, sudo yum install -y python 27 python 27-devel. Already installed. Okay, so which python - version 27. Great, perfect. Which pip - version pip install virtual env. Great, yeah, everything is already working. Pip install virtual env upgrade. Sudo bang. All right. So maybe like build.sh will just work. Build.sh. Nope. So build.sh. And Slayer Darth asks the question, am I given directives as to what sort of projects you can work on during these streams? And I hope my boss is watching, because no, I'm not given any directives at all. They're like, Randall, go figure out something to do and build it. And so I do. Do I have to rebuild FFmpeg? No, because I got FFmpeg from this statically compiled this page. So this guy, John Van Sickle, hosts all these static builds of FFmpeg that are pretty good. I have this guy on a Slack channel on the DevOps Slack asking me recently about how he could build out this BBC Python library called audio waveform, or this binary called audio waveform. And I was trying to figure out how to statically compile it with CMake and stuff, and it was non-trivial. Like getting everything to statically compile is really hard. And Slayer Darth is asking the question of, so is there a possibility of having a community project? Absolutely. If you guys want to work on something together, that would be the absolute bomb. I would love, love, love to work on something with all of you. So if you guys can think of something, let me know. We've got a broadcast coming up pretty soon where we're going to be working with the Lex bot chat chatbot hackathon kind of thing. We're going to have kind of a guest star from who works at Slack on the channel. I think that'll be really cool. I'm excited for that. You guys just like start brainstorming. And is the DevOps Slack public? I don't know actually. DevOps DevOpsChat.slack.com. DevOps chat. Yeah, there's some sort of invite to get into the DevOps Slack chat. I don't know how to do it, but you can probably Google and figure it out. It's a really good channel. There are like 6,000 plus people, and like a HackerRank type site. Yeah, that would be cool. So we're gonna say FFmpeg, and we're gonna say readit.py. This will take a hot second. It'll actually be faster than it was on my machine, not because this is like a bigger, better machine, but because it's just got better internet. But it still has to compile all of those shared object libraries and everything. And then we'll have to copy it over. And I don't think I put an instance profile on this machine, so that might be an issue. I might have to go and add one to it that has permissions to copy all this. So if I go and hop into this other region, I think it's devopschat.co. It has like 6,000 people in it. It's really big. There's an AWS channel. I hang out there. I'm happy to answer any questions. I wasn't able to solve the static compile issue for the one person in the channel, and I feel bad about that. I really wanted to solve it for them, but it's just like a bear to like figure out how to statically compile this one binary because it has. No, I do have the right role. You'll notice most of my roles are called delete me. Zipping up the file. I'm always curious what takes so long with zipping this file. It must be building the argument list. There we go. Yeah, it's got to be building this argument list, this like dash exclude thing. Because it can't take that long to zip a file. It just can't. It's like not a thing. AWS S3CP. So I'm just going to take this exact same command and run it again on that AWS instance. It is not a T2 micro. It's a T2 nano. Okay, so now we can hop on over back to Lambda. Here we go. We're actually already in the right Lambda over here. And I think I need to upload this again. And just in case we need to keep uploading this, I'm going to copy it this time. So we're going to say readit.zip. Alrighty. And we're going to save and test, and hopefully it'll just work. Cross your fingers, guys. Looks like it's working. Oh, god damn it. Okay, what did we break? No such file or directory. Oh, okay. Cool. So I know what this issue is, actually. Oh, and we need to take out that print. So let's readit.py. Read it. So where's print? So we're going to delete this. And the issue here is that when we import audio segment, we also need to say audio segment.converter equals FFmpeg. And that'll just look for FFmpeg in our local directory there. Cool. And then we'll zip it all up again. I really didn't need to run build again. I could have just run zip -9, you know, read it or read it.py. Yeah, why don't I just do that actually? Oh no, it's working. Okay, so there are a couple questions. DevOps Kuhn, Randall, do you use Terraform or CloudFormation? I used to use Terraform for some of my projects back before I worked here. Now I mostly use CloudFormation. CloudFormation tends to be a little bit better about telling you when a resource is actually ready, particularly for IAM roles. But Terraform's fine. Like there's no problem with using Terraform. It works great. And then Eucalyptus Elephant, how do I get started with AWS? Eucalyptus Elephant, I would strongly recommend you check out AWS Lightsail, like LIGHTSAIL. Lightsail is really, really good for just one-off projects. And then if you're already a software engineer and you already have like kind of a good setup rolling, check out CodeStar. So the CodeStar service will let you run any of the apps that you're used to running pretty easily. Oh my God, zipping this file is taking forever. It's the exclude argument. That's what it is. It's that -x, like looping through all of those directories. I'm never going to run this again. Next time I'll just do zip-9, the readit.mp or readit.py thing. And then Slayer Dart says, so Randall, I'm thinking we can make our own hacker rank type site as a community project. That sounds absolutely awesome to me. Please email me about that. Again, my email, randhunt@amazon.com. All of you are more than welcome to email me. I have a backlog right now of about 3 days, so it takes me about 3 days to respond to people. But after that, I'm good to go. So let's AWS S3 copy all that. We will not upload, sorry. We will copy this all over again. We'll save and test. And hopefully this will work. Cross our fingers. Do you think this will work? And P. Hakui says, do you really need to zip and push FFmpeg every time you need to make a small change to the Python file? Yeah, and the reason you have to do that is because you are basically creating your own deployment package. Okay, so this didn't work again. So let's look at the layout of readit.zip. FFmpeg is there. So what we really have here is some issue with readit. I don't have to re-zip everything again. I only have to zip converter. I only have to zip the one thing really, which is this file. So I just have to re-zip that file and upload it all again. Yeah, if you're not including things like FFmpeg or other crazy stuff like what we're doing today, then you don't have to do any of this. So where exactly is this error happening? I think it's happening in this sound.export. Build sound on line 70, in line 51, so sound plus equals audio segment from mp3 dot path. So it's definitely happening there. So what I'm thinking is like the library that we have is just not 100% right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say import, or no, I've already imported OS, so I'll say os.stat FFmpeg, and if FFmpeg is there, if FFmpeg is there, then let's just print that. So we'll say print We'll just make sure it's there. How do I get the current path in Python? Like my current, where am I currently in Python? That's what I'm interested in. Lambda Python get current directory. It should just be like os.cwd or something, or os.path.dear name. Is it os.cwd? Insert so below. os.get cwd. There we go. Cool. So get without the underscore. So print os.get cwd. Zip-9 readit.zip readit.py AWS S3CP. And then let's upload it again. G Polly says, hi from Argentina. Hello from Los Angeles. So this time at least it should have printed some stuff. Come on. Maybe I need to like change the configuration to get it to reload the container. Let's see if this one works. What in the Sam hell? Okay, we're gonna try this a different way. We are gonna try and put it directly in the Lambda handler itself. Oops. We'll try this once more with feeling. I hope I'm not like accidentally not using the right bucket or something. That would be ironic. Okay, it definitely should have uploaded something this time. Okay, stat result, it definitely exists, and we're in /var/task. Maybe FFmpeg needs to be in /temp. I'm trying to think of why it would need to be there. So maybe I should, let's see what happens if I put it in. Let me just put in the full purposeful path here. We'll say audio segment.converter is /var/task/FFmpeg. So we're going to try that, and we will see if it works. If anybody has any ideas for why this isn't working, please let me know. And then Marwosik says, hi from the Czech Republic. Hi from Los Angeles. I was in Munich like 7 days ago, which is not the Czech Republic. I know that. I'm just making conversation while my app fails to work here. Decoding failed. FFmpeg returned error. Well, that's good, because now at least we know we are getting a response back, whereas previously we were not. So what does FFmpeg returned error code -11 mean? FFmpeg error code -11. Yeah, it's nice. It imported, and now we have a different error to debug. -11 error. Oh, come on. I am not going to go through all of that. FFmpeg -11. What I'm guessing is that it needs some like local space to work in, which is why I probably need to copy it into /temp. Error codes. -11. Ugh. This is awful. 11. No, I'm not even going to try. I have a suspicion for why this is happening. But AV codec error code. Oh crap, I might need libav, but no, it's statically compiled, so I shouldn't. Okay, anyway, this is my suspicion for why this is happening. I think that FFmpeg in the directory that it's executing in needs some like working space to do stuff. And when it's in /var/task, it doesn't have the ability to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it into /temp and make it work from there. So Python copy file. I thought there was like an os.cp, but anyway, we'll say so we'll say read it.py os dot, or sorry, we'll say import shutil copy file from /var task FFmpeg into /temp /FFmpeg, and then we'll say this thing is in FFmpeg, and I reckon that'll do it, but I've been wrong before, as we have all seen. So let's try it and see what happens. All done. Hopefully we get a different error this time. Permission denied. Huh. Where was the permission denied? Why was the permission denied? But it's a different error. let's put this in the Lambda handler. I don't want to leave this in the Lambda handler because that's a lot of nonsense. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I don't need to do that every time. It's just rather strange that I should not be able to call out to that. And if I have to save and test this one more time, and Pihakui asks, in this Lambda, are you given your own sort of container within the OS so that you can move files around? Also, it said on the website that AWS is supposed to handle all OS things. So are you even sure that it runs a particular OS? Yeah, it runs Amazon Linux. I guess you're kind of like guessing that that is true. So permission denied. Permission denied. Why is that? Oh, you know what it is? It's I don't have the ability to, okay, this is why it's happening. I need to use copy and not copy. It's losing its chmod plus x. It's losing its, plus x executable permission when I'm doing the copy. Read it.py. So I can take this back out. And put this back here. Say this. Boom. And yeah, we definitely saw the current working directory bit. Yeah, copy is exactly what we were looking for, not copy file. You're exactly right. And that was the issue. And hopefully this one will work. If this one doesn't work, we're gonna try some crazy stuff. And technically the stream is supposed to end around now, but I'm gonna keep going until we get it all working. Do we at least get a different error? Couldn't decode. FFmpeg returned error code 11. What happens if we run it locally? Like if I run this locally, Python-m, read it, Lambda, hand, Python, import, read it, no module name, but that's great. Pip install -r requirements. I probably needed to run sudo. If I have to re-download all of this, I'm going to be ticked off. Sudo pip install -r requirements.txt. So we're still running into the same issue that we ran into back when it wasn't in that directory. So we know it's not that. But the question is, like, what is it then? So it's like, actually, we do need to look up that error code. What is the issue now? What? Sudo yum search Python 27 zlib devel. I hate dependencies. Like, it's the worst thing in the world. Why am I having to deal with this right now? This is awful. But this is what programming is. What other dependencies do we need? Sudo yum search JPEG devel or libjpeg. But it's libjpeg. Sudo yum install -y libjpeg dash turbo libjpeg dash turbo dash devel. Java 1 guy, the object is actually already public, so you can go to this URL and you can download it if you want. So it's already public, you can get it from there. Or maybe it's not, but I'll make sure the next time I upload it to make it public. But first, I have to iteratively make sure that eventually Python image library compiles and runs, which is proving to be slightly more difficult than what I was hoping for. No GCC, sudo yum search GCC, sudo yum install GCC. Yes. Yeah, I have to re-upload it with the public ACL, but I'll do that on like my next thing. It won't take long. I promise I'll re-upload it. It'll be great. Everybody can program and mess around with my code. I'll just re-upload it now if you guys want. Like, my end goal is to have everything into one little template.yaml that everybody can instantiate and run, and everything will be hunky-dory. I wish I knew what this FFmpeg problem was. Like, does anybody, like, while I have the combined resources of Twitch kind of working with me here, does anybody know for FFmpeg or like libav error code -11, does anybody know what that error code corresponds to? That would make my life a lot easier. Yum search libxml2. So if anybody can find out what FFmpeg libav error code -11 means, we could start making some progress. In the meantime, I'm just trying to get it to work locally. Which is non-trivial. What even is this stuff? What is it looking for? XPath? libxml, sudo yum search libxml. Sudo yum install python 27-lxml. Yeah, I saw install -y python 27-lxml. What's weird is that when I put it in the virtual environment, it worked just fine. There were no issues. It just installed. Maybe I should do that again now. Finally. There we go. Okie dokie. so Python, let me pip install IPython real quick. I don't want IPython 6.1. I want IPython 5. Greater than 5, less than 6. I don't even know. We'll just use regular Python. Import, read it. Oh my god. Pip install photo 3. Sudo bang bang. We're making some progress fairly soon, I promise. We're almost there. Import photo 3. Cool. So import, read it. So I can do read. So I can kind of edit that out for a hot second there. Let me just say like this is my local directory for now. For now, that's what I'll say. So what if I do like, oops, I'll say os.path or os get, yeah, path.join os.path or os.get cwd and FFmpeg. And I think that will do what I want. Import, read it. Must specify a region. Are some wacky bitmap. That sounds like hell. That sounds like actual hell. I do not want to go reading through that bitmap to find what -11 is. What is -11 in like bytes? Ugh. So what was the error that I got a second ago? It was no region. So so we'll say region equals US West, US East 1, and we'll say region equals US East 1. I actually think that this needs to be region name. I was able to find the -11 is bitstream filter not found, encoder not found. No, -11 is going to be the full error. So this like bitmap that you're seeing, where there's like this -11, those are bytes. So it's like -11. -11 is going to be equal to an error that looks something like, you know, 0x 0000 A0. It's gonna look like that, I think, or it might just look like 0A. Actually, that's what it's gonna look like, something like that. -11 equals B. Okay. Ah, yeah. Here, the command has an error now. Erno, -11. So it might not be FFmpeg, it might be libav that's giving us that error. So ugh. Is there like a common -11 Erno that I just don't know about? You know what? Let's switch away from the Git build that we've been using so far. No, first let's try read it dot lambda handler, and I'm going to pass in the same URL that I'm passing in here. So read it dot lambda handler URL and then I'm going to pass in none for context. If this works, I'll be furious. So why does it work? It works locally, but not on Lambda. So we have some issue, right? We're missing output from FFmpeg avlib. Couldn't decode error. FFmpeg returned error code -11, which is like Z, you know, B. I'm at a loss here. What do you guys think? I'm like kind of at my wit's end. I know we can figure this out, but I also don't want to spend all day on it. Like, what do you guys? What am I missing? Like, what are we missing here? Here, no, sorry, nobody can see the bottom. I'm gonna turn off the image for now so that we can see a little better. So Java 1 guy says, are we still putting it in /temp? Maybe it doesn't exist. So FFmpeg definitely exists because it's getting called, right? I mean, we just need to, like, let's step through the code here. Read it.py. Yeah, DevOps Kun, can I spawn an AMI with an EC2 AMI with all this? Yes, this AMI that we're on right now is the exact one that Lambda is running. I mean, with basically no changes. Let me upload the code for those of you who were interested earlier. Public read. So now everybody should be able to get the code. Okay, so the only thing we have left to do is step through it. We know that our build composite array stuff is good, like that's all working. What we're not sure about is this build sound and we know generate hash is working. I guess I should return the hash too. Maybe we'll MD sound MD5. Sound MD5. We'll return that too. So let's look at the Lambda handler first, and then we'll look and step into all of the other stuff. So we'll say URL equals event.get URL. That should work. We're getting the default voice, not having any issues with the parameter. How about we say if article.cleaned text, if not, then 1, 2, 3, 4. Raise value error bad request can't read article. And you're not supposed to use contractions. unable to read the article. Okay, we get our sound data, and our sound data is coming in from build sound. So let's look through build sound. Build sound is creating that composite array. We know that that works. We're creating an empty sound segment. Now, for each piece of text in that composite array, we're calling out to poly. And we're calling synthesized speech with an output format of MP3 and a sample rate of sample rate. Text is equal to text. Text type is equal to text. Voice ID, that should all work. Maybe I should start, let me just for debugging purposes here, I'm going to print the response. Now we set a path, and that path is /temp/da-da-da, where the path is going to be the, oh shit, this is what it is. Okay, I think I figured it out. It's this stuff. I'm not sure that these files are persisting. No, they are. Never mind. Sorry, I got excited for no reason. I thought I had found it. I need some help debugging, people. If you've got your Twitter friends, if you got your people, call them now. Tweet, share. I need help. Path is going to be equal to the response, the request ID. Open that file, write that file, audio stream.read. That all works. And then this is the thing that's failing. This thing right here. This is where it all goes wrong. What am I doing wrong? Import, read it, Python, or read it, Lambda, handler. So Fruvman asks, when I move FFmpeg to temp, am I also setting the permissions and chmodding it to 755? I am not, because I'm not moving it to temp anymore. That was just me thinking that that would save it, but that wasn't the issue actually. Unknown error. You know, what it could be is it could be the version of FFmpeg I'm using. It could be this like statically compiled Git version. What if I go for the release version? Let's go for the release version just in case. Like, I don't think that's it, but just in case that is it. How do I tar-xz? I forget how to make it do the uncompressed xfz. xf. So I guess it just figures out the format by itself. And Z specifies gzip. Okay. And then Nexium asks, can I show the error again? Yeah, I will show the error again, and we'll see So this is the whole error. It says couldn't decode error. So the error is couldn't decode error. So I mean, if there are reasons for could not decode error, that would be good. So we're gonna say rm-rf FFmpeg release cp FFmpeg FFmpeg zip-9 FFmpeg into readit.zip. Nope, sorry, wrong thing. Wrong thing. Readit.zip FFmpeg. And then let me look in readit.py one more time. What am I doing down at the beginning of this Lambda handler? I'm not doing any of the copying or anything like that anymore. It's just straight up. So let's just zip-9 readit.zip, readit.py, and AWS. Let's try it one more time here. Resource temporarily unavailable. Standard error 11 is resource temporarily unavailable. So that's like what the standard Linux error is, right? Yeah, that's what I'm used to. But I saw it with like this -11 thing that it was gonna be something different. Let's get a little crazy here. Let's try something else. We're gonna try something out there. We're gonna say AWS S3 CP FFmpeg into S3 poly read it, and then we're gonna come over here into where is this again? We're gonna come over here into our into our function, and we're gonna say this will go down here, and this is going to be, let's see, we're going to make another S3. It's going to be photo3.resource S3, and then we're going to say try 1, 2, 3, 4 os.makedeers/temp/bin accept 1, 2, 3, 4 pass, and then we're going to say s3r.object bucket name. Did we already import bucket name? We did not. Okay, so we're going to say S3 bucket name is going to be FFmpeg. It's going to be the name of the binary. I'm going to say download file into /temp/bin/FFmpeg. And then we're going to say os.chmod /temp/bin/FFmpeg 755. Is GitHub down? Not again. I really hope that's not again. No, poor GitHub. I'm sorry. It's so rough when that happens. /temp/bin/FFmpeg. OSCHmod. Okay, so we're gonna try that. And we're just to like make sure it's syntactically correct. I'm just gonna run it like that. Cool. So, and then what's in read.py? Okay, so zip-9, come on, zip-9, and then AWS S3, come on, AWS S3, I need to do it with public ACL so you guys can play with it. Okay. You'll notice that AWS is up, so I don't think they're hosted on AWS, but you can run GitHub Enterprise on AWS super easily, which is pretty cool. I used to do that. I just don't understand what this error means. I'm off testing something else really fast.
Slack bots. They're fun, they're useful, and people are building new businesses around bot interaction models on a daily basis. A few weeks.
I know that this is possible. Like, I'm 100% certain that this is possible. I just can't figure out why it's not working. Do you guys think I need more memory? Should I just throw more memory at it? So it looks like, so which function is giving the error message? So if we look at the log output, I'll put the log output in a gist really fast. And I'll share it with everybody. Huh, I just tried to put it in a gist and it's down for maintenance. Ugh, that's not good. Paste bin. So here's the error. Am I like not setting the format in read it? That would be just the biggest, that would be so sad. So the error is getting thrown. I don't think it's that. Because if it was 64-bit, it wouldn't even execute, right? I mean, I can try the 64-bit one, but so maybe it does need to be 64-bit. Maybe it's an encoding issue. Do Lambda binaries need to be 64-bit? I feel like it wouldn't even start. Do I need libav? But the statically compiled version of FFmpeg should have libav in it, right? Like that's the entire point. Shit. It probably does need to be, you know, I think it does need to be the 64-bit one. Yeah, I think it needs to be the 64-bit one. I think you guys are exactly right. Oh, I'm such a moron. I am an idiot. I'm just double checking that it needs to be the 64-bit one. Yep, it does. If this ends up being the issue, I'm gonna be a little frustrated, not gonna lie. So Nexium thinks that I need libav, but with the statically compiled version, libav should be in it, you know? CP, FFmpeg 3.1, FFmpeg. Zip-9, FFmpeg. Readit.zip. It was a very cryptic error message to decode. So for those of you who like write code every day, like I do, isn't it so frustrating when like you end up having, you know, your 40 or 50 lines of code, right? Like everything's going well, and sorry, I'm checking out how my bit rate's doing. Looks like I had a couple little blips over here a little bit earlier. So technically, if it is that issue, I shouldn't have to recompile it or anything. I should just be able to upload the new version that I've got right here into S3 and then invoke it again, and it should, you know, work anew. It was throwing a couldn't decode error, and you'd think if it was throwing a couldn't decode error that it wouldn't have even been able to start the executable. Yeah, see, same issue. I want to go back a release. You know, I want to go back to I want to get a version that I know works, because I know I did this. I've used, oh, come on. Well, now my browser is frozen. I've used this version. Oh, no. That's not what I wanted. I've used, come on. I've used 3.2.2.2 to great effect and never had an issue with it. But I've never used 3.3.3.1, which is like this current version. And I'm just gonna see if I can download 3.2.1 or 2. 64-bit static.tar-exe. See, it has libav, it has GCC even, like it has everything it needs right in here. I'm so confused as to why this isn't working. We gotta figure it out. We gotta get, we can't leave it like this, you know? We've gotta figure it out. There's gotta be a solution. Oh my God. What if it's this? What if it is literally what if it's the streaming body takes a second. No. I am using the 64-bit version now, and the 64-bit version is working fine. So it wasn't 64-bit, 32-bit. It was. What if it's the temp files? You have to wait a second for them to show up. That would be freaking nutty. All this time, the past like 45 minutes on that, and I'd like chuck the computer out of the window. I don't think it's this. I really don't think it's this. But if it is. No. No. And P. Haqui asks, could this I'm sorry. Yeah, it can be automated. I have another build script. It's just like AWS upload. It's working. It's finally working. I am so frustrated that that was how we fixed it. Wow. 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 That's why it was giving E again. Exactly, because the file wasn't closed yet, because the OS is responsible for closing the file, and the OS isn't necessarily gonna I need a second. That was all of that work. So basically what we needed to add like an os.wait for file to be ready. So that's actually a bug in the PyDub library, I think. I think we can put that up to a bug in their library. Wow. Resource not available. Resource temporarily unavailable. That's exactly why we were getting that error. So much time. I don't know why that finally occurred to me. It was just like, I was thinking about the other times that I've seen that error in my life, and that was the issue. Jeez. What a joke. What a joke. So we can get rid of all of this. We don't need, we don't need any of this stuff anymore. We can change this back to os.path.join, os.get CWD. Yeah, like for those of you who write code every day, this is not that big of a deal, but it's just it's one line, and that was the whole issue the entire time. It's killing me. I can't deal with it. So I can get rid of printing this response. So is there a way in Python to check if a file is ready or not? Python check file ready. Resource temporarily. Yeah, 32-bit versus 64-bit didn't matter though. Local ghost, because it's the same x86. It's just one has the 64-bit extensions and the other ones doesn't. So I mean, it's the same. The context manager does close the file, but it doesn't happen instantly, right? Like the context manager, as far as Python is concerned, passes it off to the operating system. And the operating system is responsible for making that file, done and marked as read. Maybe it would work better. Like maybe the issue is that I'm returning from within the context manager, but I'm not. I'm not even doing that. And the other thing is this response audio stream.read. It's a streaming body, so it's not like the entire thing doesn't. It's like a multi-part post. Like you get the response piece at a time. Yeah, just for a split second, exactly. Oh my god, that's the gnarliest error I've dealt with in a while. Thank you guys for sticking with me through all of that. It does mean a lot to me. I know it's not the most exciting thing in the world to like watch somebody throw their head at all of this, but we've made significant progress. Significant progress. So like let's go ahead and create an endpoint and throw this in front of it. So we'll go to API Gateway. And I will create a new resource, and I'm going to call this resource read it. And read it is going to invoke, it's going to have a method, a post method. And the post method is going to call out to a Lambda function, which is going to be our read it Lambda function. I just can't believe that temp thing. Ugh. And then we'll deploy the API. So now you guys should be able to do curl. I mean, we can try it locally here. Curl-d, curl-d, URL, Washington Post. Yeah, H Goalie asks, would with open help? I already have that. It's an issue with the operating system. It's not an issue with it is not an issue on the Python side. It's an issue on the operating system side. It's just like we're hitting that split second barrier. At least I think we are. I don't know for sure. I don't know anything anymore. I'm starting to question everything I ever knew about computers. Like you guys saw like how crazy that was. So anyway, api.rayman.com/read it. Unexpected character. Oh, that's because in this -d I need to wrap that in this little shindig. Huh. What did I do there? So I think that ought to do it. EOF looking for matching. Oh yeah. Quotes got messed up. Yeah, they did. Come on. Quotes. Oh yeah, it needs to be this. It needs to be URL. So, I mean, if I go here, it should just read the page, right? Like that's what we're expecting. Come on now. wget AF play 6F12, yeah.
Some of the internet's biggest names are banding together for a day of action to oppose the Federal Communications Commission, which is working to undo regulations.
All right, well guys, we have built our API. We have about 10 minutes left before I really need to go. My significant other is going to be home in like 10 minutes, and I'm going to have to like be a responsible human adult and go do other things. But I'm really glad that we got all this working. I'm also a little sad that we wasted that long on a time.sleep issue. I'm not even certain that I fully understand why that's necessary. But, you know, here's the command. You guys can try it. You can, you know, use your own voices. I think what we should do with our remaining time here is I think that we should go ahead and... Hello, Creative Builds. Thanks for joining. I think we should take our remaining time and I think we should add some caching. Fruvman says, not wasted. We all learned, and none of us will run into that problem again. And I'm sorry, Fruvman, to disagree with you. I guarantee you, probably next week, I will run into this exact same problem and not remember why. I just can't believe. And I'll make all this code available for everybody so that, you know, you guys can look at it and everything. And I'll upload to S3 a couple more times. Like, I'll put it all on GitHub. I'm sorry that GitHub is down right now. I don't actually rely on GitHub for this, so one of you will remind me. That'll be good. Why don't we take the remaining time that we have and let's do some caching. Let's build in some caching into this. I think it should be really, really easy to do. I'm not. Let's do it in an IDE though, because an IDE is going to give us a little more kind of ease of use, I think. So we're not using SHUtil anymore. We got our poly read it thing. We got that default voice of Emma, where we've got FFmpeg being included. What we really need is a DynamoDB client. So Creative Builds is asking for a rundown of what's happening here. All right, so here's what's happening. We wanted to build a website that would read a web page. So if you can look at the screen right now, you can see we have this user coming in, and they're submitting a request to this API gateway endpoint, which is invoking a Lambda function, which is calling out to the Poly API, which is going to read the web page in a, you know, human voice. It's a fairly realistic voice, but not 100% accurate by any means. It's going to come back through Lambda, going to go back through the API gateway, and then go back to the user. And it should return a URL that you could play on any page. So I think the next time that we do this, what we'll do is we'll talk about how we can create a quick Chrome extension to kind of add stuff to this page and invoke it. Because we need to add CORS support, so we need to make sure that we can call this from anywhere. And like accept origin support, all that. I mean, we can do that really quickly here in API Gateway. So if we just go over here to this read it thing that we created, we can just say enable CORS. And it'll say, you know, access control, allow origin all, allow post. And then we'll say like enable CORS and replace the headers and all that. And it'll go ahead and do all of that for us. And then we can go and we can say deploy API again. And now we can call it from our JavaScript, which is like the end goal. We'll build like a Chrome extension to do all of this. But let's add some caching. And the reason we have to add caching is if you imagine how expensive it would be if people were all calling out to the same article every single time, like I don't have any need to rebuild that every time. No, it's not a voice reader for not safe for work stuff. That not safe for work endpoint that you saw actually tells you if an image is safe for work or not, and that's using the recognition API. That's just another kind of like thing that I built for another project from another day. So let's build some caching. And to build some caching, we're going to have to create a DynamoDB table. So we're going to go to, oops, sorry. Can you guys see that? So we're going to go to tables, and then we're going to go to, I think that we'll just call this like read it table, read it. And we'll have a primary key of a URL, which will be a string. And we'll just use the default settings. See, typically the default settings has like a couple of alarms and stuff on it. Oh, but this doesn't. And that's because there's a feature coming to DynamoDB that you guys shouldn't know about yet. So, ta-da! Cool. You guys learned something new today. So that's being created. Yeah, there's a huge spectrum of coding. And DevOps Kun, you know what I'll do is I will publish a blog post about this so you can read about it in detail. You can see a bit of the blog post so far. I've kind of been working on it. I'll share it with you guys now. This isn't completed by any means yet. But I'll share it with the Twitch folks just because you guys are all nice people. But this is what I've been working on. So, well, let me wait and update the code actually. So before this stream is over, I will share the blog post so far, DevOps Kun. In creative builds, yeah, there's all kinds of coding. This is just one of them. All right, so we have a couple minutes left. What I want to do is I want to get the caching done because the caching is important and that's gonna like let us do some stuff. So we're gonna say cache time equals os.getInv cache time, and I'm gonna say we're gonna cache everything for an hour. And we're gonna create a DynamoDB table, and that's just gonna be Boto3 resource DynamoDB, which is I always spell wrong. And we're gonna say the table is gonna be os.getInv table name or read it. And that'll be the table. And that's all we need on the DynamoDB side. Now the rest of it all happens in this Lambda handler. So within the Lambda handler, basically what we want to do is we want to make a call out to see if the response contains the voice and everything like we want it to. So I'm not exactly sure how to do this. Let's see. I guess we can just call out like, I mean, we could just say the key, we can just say the key is the URL because we already set that up, right? So we can just say response equals ddb.get item key equals URL. And maybe we should like strip the URL and do some other stuff with it, but I think it'll be fine for now. And then if response.get item and all of the following conditions are true, then do something. But first we have to figure out the conditions. And I think the conditions are just going to be response item voice equals voice and response item TS plus cache time, or sorry, cache time is less than time.time, which is going to be the current time, then we want to return the cached item, which will be return response. Otherwise, we want to get the article text. And then maybe we don't care about if there's no actual text in it. And then we want to generate a text MD5, which is going to be generate hash article.cleaned text. That should be that. Text MD5, and we want to say if response item text MD5 equals text MD5. So if the text of the article hasn't changed and the response item voice is the same, then return the response. Otherwise, we just keep going. So then we need to put more stuff into our, so we've got to put the voice in. So the voice is going to be voice. And then we've got to put in the text MD5. Text MD5. And then we've got to put in the timestamp as well. So timestamp is going to be int of time.time. And that's our caching. So I think that should just work. I don't think we really need to do anything. And I'm also going to take out this like region name stuff because it's not necessary and it makes it less portable. Region name. Cool. So that's all of that. I'll hop back over to our EC2 instance and I'll just edit this real quick. And I'll, throw on paste mode, insert everything, close that out, zip it all up. Come on, zip -9, come on. And then AWS S3. And you were asking if there's a way to do this faster, and there absolutely is. I have a set of scripts that I normally use for like uploading this and all of that, but it kind of hides how people develop, and so I didn't want to use it. I've lost the window that has the Lambda function in it. I think it'll work. I think it'll work first time. I am that arrogant that I think it will work first time with no issues. Read it. Let's see what happens. It did not work. Here. What is this key here? Oh, I see. So here, yeah, this is why. So this needs to be a .get. That ought to do it. What's weird is none of this should have been triggered. So what I really need to do is throw one of these in here. I think I need to put this in an array. Yeah, I gotta put that in an array. Various conditions. Okie dokie. That ought to do it. Let's try this once more with feeling. Hey, P. Hakui, do you know exactly how to do that? Because if you can give me a code snippet, I'll update it now. But for now, like the time.sleep is good enough for me. I'm just gonna, like, it's a little more expensive. It's not the most performant thing in the world, but like I'm just gonna go with it because it's working, and you know I get how the select should work. Like I know vaguely what it should look like, but I don't want to. Let's do it. Okay. Time.sleep. You know, yeah, I'm gonna put all this on GitHub in a little while. All right, guys, there we go. We have our whole API. There's probably some bugs. Probably doesn't work 100% well. Let me just change the blog post in another window really fast. Okay, so you guys were asking for the blog post. I will put this on an AWS official blog at some point in the next few weeks, but this is the gist of the blog post as it stands now. I'm going to create a quick repo with all of this code and include it. So I'm going to say hub create or cd47. I'm sorry. 6F. This is such a bad habit. So I'm just trying to, okay, cool. Git add lambdas. And then I'm gonna say hub create. Git push origin master source ref spec master does not git push origin. Oh, I don't have any git commit or git commit -m, and this is going to include that statically compiled binary. from John Van Sickle, but you guys should use whichever one you want. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use mine. In fact, let me take that out actually. RM lambdas FFmpeg. Get status. Get rm-f lambdas FFmpeg. All right, so get commit-m testing some poly API stuff. Alt git push origin master. And then we'll make a quick readme. Grab static FFmpeg from John Van Sickle site, build with /build.sh, read it.zip, and what was it called again? We would call in FFmpeg and read it.py. Upload to Lambda and have a good time. Git commit readme.md. Let's throw this into a little code block. Git add readme, git commit-m added readme, git push origin master, and hub browse. And this is for you guys. Thank you, all of you, so much for sticking around. It means a lot. This was way harder than it should have been. The next time I stream, what we'll do is we'll take this little API that we built and we will turn it into and Pihakui says I would probably need to test it out at least locally, and you can definitely test it out locally. It should work fun. Really, really, really appreciate you guys sticking around the stream this long. I know it was not easy solving. I don't want my pull request to be untested. Story of my life. So this Twitch channel is still fairly new. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. We're trying to build it because we found that there are a lot of people who kind of enjoy this content, and my goal is to basically build a suite of content and videos that you guys can use to learn from AWS, potentially less debugging on my side and more actual teaching, and that you guys can use to interact with AWS. So if you guys have any ideas for projects, for ideas, for anything at all, I strongly encourage you to reach out to me. You should follow me on Twitter, at JRHunt. I build a lot of stuff all the time. Like 90% of my job is just building demos and having a good time. So if you're ever interested in trying those out, please check that out. You're also more than welcome to email me at any time, randhunt@amazon.com. Like I said, I super appreciate you guys sticking around. I have maybe 2 or 3 minutes for questions. So if you guys have any questions about anything that we did today, I'm happy to answer them. I can show you my office, you know, whatever you guys are interested in. I've got until 5:25 before I really need to get off the stream. So yeah, I think this was fun. I think we built a lot. I don't know. All right, well, it doesn't seem like there are any questions unless you guys are still typing. I'll leave another 30 seconds or so. What a fun day. 5 or 6 hours working on this. Let's see. I got a couple questions on Twitter. Creative Builds asks, what's my main project that I'm working on? I don't really have a single main project. I actually have a bunch of different ones. So I Yeah, so Local Ghost asks, is this recorded? It absolutely is recorded. You can watch it on this channel, and eventually all of these streams get exported to YouTube. We cut them down a little bit before we export them to YouTube, but you can look in the video on demand thing. It should be posted within the next few hours. You can skip around and see stuff. And then anything older than 3 months goes to our YouTube channel. I had a really good time today. I love building things and having it work out. One other thing that I'd really like to build is we're going to build a little Slack bot that lets us vote on what the next episode should be. So that's what we're going to build next time on the stream. So we have the Maker Studio where we play with robots and leap motions and all that other stuff. Caching is working, yeah. So we can go and we can look at the cache right now if you're interested. Yeah, it only took a couple seconds to code that up. There isn't a Slack channel yet, but we're going to build one. So caching is working. No, caching isn't working. Oh, we forgot something. We forgot something. This is my bad. This is my bad. Hold on. We'll fix it. We'll fix it really fast. Put item equals item return item. Okay, now caching is working. Now caching is working. I'm sorry. Get add -p. Fix caching. So we'll fix this caching really fast. That'll leave a second for you guys to ask a couple questions. Please ask questions. I'm so lonely here in Los Angeles. Read it up by ggd set paste zip -9. Do you guys ever reach that kind of like coding nirvana where like you stop thinking really and you just kind of have like moving pieces in your mind? Does that ever happen to anybody else? Like it's a pretty powerful phenomenon. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's like being 100% in the zone. Creative Build says, how long have you been coding for? I've been coding for like, I don't know, 12 years. It's been a while. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm by no means the best. I'm by no means the worst. But I'd say I'm slightly above average, but definitely not in like the top 10%. Maybe like the top 70%. Or so the top 30%, I mean. Which one is this? Read it. But not the top 10%. S3. And I'm super arrogant, so you should probably add a plus or minus onto that. Yeah, it always happens right before you're like at that perfect moment. There have been some times, so before I worked here at Amazon, I worked at a company called SpaceX, and I used to just like spend all day with these headphones on, and I'd just be like, you know, coding. It was a great time, and I like the opportunity to work on this sort of stuff because it's a little more, you know, consumer facing, and you get feedback on the apps that you're building a lot faster. And I really got to go, but I wanted to show you guys that the caching is working now. So caching is working now. Good call. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm gonna head out. This has been a really fun time, really, really fun. And why did I prefer PHP over Node.js? It was actually Python, not PHP, and I prefer literally anything over Node.js, even Fortran, because JavaScript is terrible. Thank you all. Have a good